Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel and a napkin journal tutorial. Here's a sneak peek of the finished page and the napkin that I started with. The napkins were provided by Ninny's Napkin. Check the description box for a discount code. So I'm starting on a gessoed 7x10 Canson Mixed Media page, and I'm taking this color scheme from the napkin. Someone has designed this. I love the sunflowers. Not so much a Rooster fan, but here is the color zone that we are in. And you'll see those colors are all together. So I am using Naples yellow, yellow ochre, the brown raw umber or burnt umber, and maybe green, because there is green in the tail of the rooster as well as underneath. So to start off, as I said, this has been gessoed, and I taped it off to keep the paint and modeling paste and anything out of the coils. So I'm mixing these colors with a makeup sponge right on the page. And I'm using more than one color or tone of a color because that adds interest to the page. I'm not worried about seeing the sponge marks or anything because I know I'm going to be putting layers on this. I'm also mixing some gesso in there. That's the white that you see going on. I just want a colorful golden background. And I'm giving this a quick dry before I go on. Now I'm going to do some stenciling, and I'm using this Sunflower Meadow stencil. And again, I know that I'm on the focal image, which will be from the napkin. I'm using that sunflower. So I'm using the same colors, the burnt umber, the yellow ochre, and I'm just stenciling this sunflower pattern throughout the background. It's going to tie in with the focal image, and it's going to add interest and layers to our background. And when we're doing art journaling, we want color, pattern, layers, and texture, both visual texture and physical texture, or physical texture. So I'm just layering that up and getting this spongy. I'm not worried about making a perfect one. My sponge is pretty dry. You can't really see that it's wet because that will seep under the stencil. So while that is drying, I have this napkin, and I'm going to cut it into fours, and then I'm going to use a liner brush to cut it with water. Now I have been in previous videos used a small angle brush, and I actually discovered by doing that the liner brush works even better. So if you do little sections at a time and pull it apart as you go, you can get quite a nice line. Now, people have asked, can you use scissors? And absolutely you can. I just find that the napkin is very flimsy by the time you take off the plies. Now I'm saving every little bit. There's lots of interest in the background, and these napkins, these little bits of napkin, will also provide texture. So I'm just putting them in a box and I'm saving them. And at some point in time, I'm sure you're going to see me using them to do something. Now the reason I'm cutting off, like the background of this napkin, I could have just collaged it right on as it was. But this is mixed media and art journaling, and I want to make my own background. And I'm going in a slightly different direction than what the napkin designer did. So pick and choose the parts of the napkin that you want. And you can combine napkins as well. So I'm going to I debated whether to put that green on the bottom, but I felt that it grounded my page. And so I just grabbed a little bit more green from another quarter, adding a little bit more interest. I'm stamping with black archival paint and a script stamp. And I know my sentiment later on typically is going to have black in it, so I wanted a little bit of black in here. So I'm playing with the location of it, and I'm going to glue this down with liquid matte medium. And this is from Liquitex. I was showing you Liquitex Basics, which is a cheaper student grade, and then there's the professional level. And I have equal success with both of them for my purposes. And I'm just putting the matte medium underneath and then on top. Now the napkin gets very fragile once it gets wet, so I'm using a softer brush. Now if I wanted the rooster to stay white, I would have put a coat of paint or gesso where the rooster was going to be placed, and that would make it white so that the colors of the rooster wouldn't turn the color of this background. But I wanted it to meld more with the background, so I chose not to do that. So with this Sunflower Meadow stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'll put a link to this, or the names of it at least, and you can check out the TCW Shopify store, and there is a discount code for them as well down below if you shop through my link. And I'm using black here. And I'm using this stencil to make a border. And that's something that I've started doing with my stencils, is using them not just as focal images, not just as design or pattern, but also looking at parts of it and using them in my borders. And this black with the gold, it just works so, so, so well. I'm just loving the contrast that's there. Now, since I'm using all acrylic paint here, if you make a mistake, you can come in with a baby wipe and very gently wipe it out. Because I know my background, while it's dry, it really hasn't cured. So if I get in there and I scrub, I'm going to actually remove paint. So here I'm just piecing to get this green a little bit further to match up to the border. And because it's napkin, you layer it, it just doesn't, you can't even tell that I've pieced it together. Giving this a good dry, and I'll cut off any of the edges that are still there. And I've got some places that I didn't get the script, so I'm just adding a little bit now that everything's in place and I can see. This stencil is called Chicken Wire Reversed. I know, not really reaching here, Rooster, chicken wire. And it's one of my favorite stencils. It is a good basic one to add to your stash because it can be used for any theme. Now I made a mask and to cover up the rooster because I don't want to get the modeling paste on the rooster. And I'm stenciling now as opposed to before for the same reason. I wanted to know where that rooster was. And here I am using champagne gold modeling paste from the Crafter's Workshop. I love this stuff. I'm adding bling, I'm adding pattern, I'm adding texture, all in one fell swoop. I'm applying this with a key card. And as always with modeling paste, I clean my stencil right away when I'm creating. And I'm showing you that because if you don't, you can end up clogging up and wrecking your stencils. If it's acrylic paint, I'm not so worried. I'll just throw them in a tub every once in a while. So I'm just tidying up a little bit of the modeling paste. Loving the look of it, but now it really needs to dry. Now, if you don't have gold modeling paste, you can put regular modeling paste on there and then put the stencil back on. Mark where you've put it because sometimes stencils are a little hard to find the exact spot. Mark where you put it and then put it back on and paint it gold. So now I'm getting ready to start some of the finishing, and this is going to be adding some shading, some highlights. So I'm edging, and I'm using the floating acrylic technique here with the angle brush, just getting a darker border. Now I could use a charcoal pencil here. I could use my Stabilo All pencil. There's lots of ways of doing that. I like using the acrylic paint because I know it will be permanent when dry. So now I'm adding some shading inside the modeling paste stenciling, and this is also going to bring out the pattern of that chicken wire reversed. And off camera, I've done a little bit more. This original art journal page was done as an Instagram live. If you aren't a follower of mine on Instagram, please go over there and follow me. I'm working on building up the number of followers. And if you go there, you'll see things well before the videos come and you know what's coming. Because I tend to share my projects on Instagram before they hit the YouTube channel. I'm just doing some shading on the Rooster. Now the Rooster, there's been gel medium on top, so now it is a non-porous surface. So I always make sure I put a good cover of gel medium for that purpose, so that when I go in and I'm adding my own details and shading, it's not just going to absorb into a raw paper napkin. I've got some gold paint that I've thinned down, and I'm using my fan brush and I'm splattering this with gold. And I believe I splattered with black as well. I printed off the saying "My Roost, My Rules" onto tissue paper, regular dollar store tissue paper that I put through my printer. And my printer is a laser printer, so it will not reactivate when I add wet medium. And I'm using tissue paper here because it will, when you use a lot of matte medium on it, it will become more translucent and you won't see the white edges. And if you're picky like me, I will show you what to do if you do see some white edges. And there, if you use a lot, the key there I've learned is to use a lot of matte medium. It soaks in the paper and really gets rid of a lot of that white. And when it's completely dry, it is clearer or more translucent than now. So if you just take the paint that's in the background and just touch up areas that are maybe a little more white than or a little more standout-ish, and you can see I'm just putting it on there and just rubbing it with my fingers, and you lose all that whiteness. Now, if you don't have a printer, you don't have tissue paper, you can make it, cut it out on white paper. You can colorize that white paper and paint it on or then glue it on. So there's lots of ways of doing the same thing. At the beginning, I said I'm not really a Rooster fan. If I had a kitchen display and that was my theme, I can see this being done on a cradled wood panel and hanging. I absolutely love it. Not my color scheme, not really my theme, but it just, the gold modeling paste, every part of this just worked together. And I'm so really happy with it. There are some close-ups coming, ways that I've displayed it on an easel. Just adding more shading. And I tend to do that. Even after the camera's shut down, I look at something. After a while, I might decide I need a little bit more here or there. It's not done till the artist says it's done. So here are the close-ups. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up. Go to Instagram, follow me at Creative Katie. Join my Facebook group, Mixed Media Creations. Look at that close-up. Yum. Leave me a comment, and we'll see you with the next video.